One.
What's going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to LogiCast, the Logical Gamers podcast. I'm Mr. Esoteric, along with Blanka Kong, Gunnar Eos, and Hado Wolf. And today we're going to be discussing gaming disappointments. Trying to make you guys familiarize with this. Like, have you guys ever been to a restaurant? You chose something on the menu, thought it looked really great, and then when you got it, it was terrible. Um, or have you ever like saw something like clothing online and you was like, oh, this would look great on me, but then when you actually got it, it looked terrible. Like the material wasn't what it was. It
Yeah,
just didn't have the proper fit, things of that
ordering
nature.
ordering anything from Wish.com, pretty much.
Pretty much, yes. So today we're going to be discussing, games that we were really stoked for and they brought a lackluster performance. So I am going to start. One of the first games that really did that for me, I would have to say, was the next gen Sonic the Hedgehog. Um, when I saw the trailer, it gave stellar graphics. The movement seemed to be like consistent, the speed, everything was like on point. But when I received it, it was nothing more than just janky controls. Um, the speed, like the speed of the character wasn't like meeting up with Sonic, so he runs really
Wait,
fast.
wait a minute, not to
Um,
cut you off. Is this the infamous Sonic '06?
I believe so. It's the Sonic
What?
'06 with that was on the PS3, Xbox
Yeah,
360, and
I
so
think
on.
you and
Sonic
most of the gaming
06.
community feel that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly why I went with it. Like the controls were terrible. Glitches all over the place. There were times where I would run off the stage, and there's actually a wall that I'm running through, and I'm falling off the stage. It was just terrible. It was I couldn't believe it. It was just a dumpster fire, to be honest. And it looked really great when they promoted it. It was on point. Like the graphics at that time was great. The CGI was on point. Um, the scenes that they actually gave us that was functioning, I don't know what the hell they did to make it work. But it worked on their end. But when I played it, it was really bad. Arguably, I wouldn't even say arguably, unanimously, the worst Sonic game ever to be created. You know, I speak for myself and everyone else. It was
Yeah,
really bad.
I don't think many people would argue that fact.
Yeah, it was really, really, really bad. You know,
Black Knight was
it
pretty shit.
it was shit, but it was functioning properly. This particular Sonic game, it was
I
it
don't know
was
about
bad.
that one.
It was bad, to be honest. It was
Well, they're equally shit. Black Knight and '06. So.
equally, yeah, but I would say '06 kind of like tilt the scales a little more in its favor. But yeah, that was my first entry. Terrible game. Feel really bad. Could have been done better, but that's what we got. So I am going to move it to you, Kong.
Cool. So, my game is one that has been forgotten. I'm gonna mention it, and people are like, "Oh shit, that was a thing." Mighty Number Nine.
Oh shit, that was a thing.
Yeah, that was a thing.
So,
Indeed.
Mm.
story behind this game is basically Kenji Fune. He's not the creator of Mega Man, but he's the person who produced most of the Mega Man games. He actually created Zero. Um,
Yeah.
so he wanted to do Mega Man Legends 3, and that was like his Mega Man iteration. So he was very passionate about it, and he ended up leaving the company before the game had any like real traction. And so I guess he left unceremoniously, and Capcom wasn't too happy about it. So they canceled the project, and Kenji Fune ended up making his own development studio, and was like, "Well, I'm gonna make the games that I want to make, and I'm gonna make a spiritual successor to Mega Man." And that spiritual successor was Mighty Number Nine, and he had like launched a big Kickstarter for it, and launched a few like concept art images, which looked fantastic. Actually, look way better than the final product if you go back and look at it. And of course, I'm a big Mega Man fan. I'm a big I was a big Kenji Ifune fan. And so I was like, okay, cool. I usually don't do this stuff, like the Kickstarter stuff, but this is a game I want to see happen. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, and I'm gonna support. So I kickstarted. I think I gave like $60 or something like that, which isn't a lot of money, but it's what I would have. My logic was, well, this is what I probably would end up paying for it. So I feel like if I pay it in advance, then I'm showing my support, because I felt like I wasn't supporting the Mega Man Legends 3 project because they had like a whole fan page where you can go and submit like concept art and ideas and stuff, and I didn't participate. Not that if I had participated, it would have made a difference. It wouldn't have, but I felt like this is a second chance. Let me, I can afford to donate something. So let me do so. Let me show my support.
I get that. Yeah.
So I said, okay, I did it. And when you donate a certain amount, you're guaranteed a day one copy of the game on whatever platform that the game is going to be published on. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll get not a free copy of the game, but I'll be guaranteed a download code for the game in case whenever it comes out and I can't buy it for whatever reason, I have it. I bought it in advance. So anyway, and then there was like a t-shirt that you get and like a bunch of other stuff like pins and little bullshit things. So I was like, all right, cool. Well, that'll be a nice little token to remember that I supported this game. So a few years pass by. More information comes out for the game. And it doesn't look great. But I'm like, it's still in development. I'm not going to like judge it too hard. And the game finally comes out. And it's a fucking disaster. So everybody who supported the game was supposed to get it first. That didn't happen. That did not happen. I didn't get my download code until 3 months after the game's launch. So, yeah. Which by that point, I didn't care anymore. So, I ended up buying the game at retail, and I worked at GameStop at the time, so I get first dibs on whatever comes in. So there was a collector's edition that came in, which came with a figure of Mighty Number 9 and like a poster and some other stuff. I think it was like a postcard or I don't know, something. But the draw was the game and the figurine. So I buy it. I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna buy it. Things happen. Whatever. I'm giving this guy a lot of chances. So I buy the game. I start playing it, and I'm like, okay, it's all right. Maybe it'll get better. And there's a few points where it was kind of interesting, but overall, it was very mediocre at best. And I'm like, this is not what I thought it would be. And the figurine sucked. Like, it didn't really have articulation. It was supposed to. It was just very stiff, very like. It looked like I could have made it out of clay if I wanted to. So I wasn't too impressed with the figure. I think it was like an $80 package or something like that. So by this point, I had invested like $140 into this game, into this IP, and I have a shitty statue, a code for a game that I had to end up buying anyway, and a copy of the game, like a PS4 copy or whatever system I bought it on. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, like this is really disappointing. And I remember being so angry that I would, when I look up the game to see like news, like, okay, is it gonna patch it? We're gonna get some DLC, like what's going on here? He was already pouring the profits from the game and from the Kickstarter, because he exceeded his goal by an exorbitant amount of money.
It got a pretty big amount.
It got a lot of support. A lot of support. Like he beat all the stretch goals. Like he got millions of dollars from fans like me. And he started like developing an anime for it, a comic book, a toy line. Like it was all about just, I'm gonna squeeze every dime out of this new IP. And didn't put any like effort, I feel, toward the game itself. It's like, well, listen, I get you want to expand the product line. I get it. I'm not a businessman, but I get it. But can you fix the base product first? Like, it's like if you have this idea for this dish for like special lasagna or something, you decide to open a restaurant, but you haven't mastered the dish but you're already talking about making a full menu and doing other dishes. It's like, no, how about you figure out this main thing first before you start expanding to these other things? And that's not what he did. And people were pissed. I was pissed. Um, we didn't get the people who kickstarted the game didn't get it until like months later. Like I got it 3 months later. So there were some people who didn't get it at all. Right? And it's like this is crazy. Like this is
Yeah.
unacceptable.
I know like the Wii U version got super delayed for a very long time. It came out practically when the Wii U was on its way out.
Yeah, and it was the worst version too to boot.
Right.
So it,
Yeah.
it performed the worst. And I remember feeling so betrayed. What were you gonna say, Wolf?
No, I was just saying I completely avoided it altogether. I didn't
Well,
get
good
it
for
at
you.
all.
Like you,
Same,
good
Wolf.
call.
Me
Good
neither.
call.
Mm.
But I didn't. I was like, I'm gonna support it. I missed out on Mega Man Legends 3, which is a game I did also want. So I'm not gonna fail him this time. And he ended up letting me down and letting
Killing you.
a lot of people down. So uh
Um, no, I was gonna ask, because I heard through the grapevine, and I could be wrong because I didn't research it myself. Didn't he come out with a statement basically telling you guys like y'all got what y'all got, and
pretty
that's
much.
pretty much it?
I mean, it could have been translated, I guess, a little aggressively. There's no way to really know unless you speak Japanese and also spoke English, and I don't know. But like he had an interview in Japanese because he only speaks Japanese, and he basically said, "Well, listen, it is what it is, and you got what you got." Kind of attitude, and I read that. I remember reading that. That is true, and that just pushed me beyond the boiling point. I was like, "Yo, fuck this guy!" Like,
Oh.
fuck this
You
guy.
could see his
Everything
wide suite of games that he
everything that Capcom and the other people that you work with said about you is true because he had a reputation for going over budget, for being a prima donna, for acting like he knew everything, not listening to other people. It was like, yeah, this must be true. Like, look how you're acting, and you're in the lead spot. Like, you're in this unique position to establish an IP, establish your own studio, which he did do, but then it crumbled, right? It crumbled just as quickly as it rose. And, now I don't know what he's doing, and I don't care either. I think
don't think he's been doing anything
the last
relevant.
thing he worked
The
on
last-
was Recore on the Xbox One, which was ages ago.
Okay.
And he only just had a
Did
hand
he
on
do
the game.
Soul Sacrificed as well?
I think he had a hand in it, but I think that was way before Mega Man Legends and all that other stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, the last thing he worked on was Recore, which is a game I did buy. I bought it used months after it came out, so I didn't support it directly. And I played that game, and it was fine, but it wasn't a fantastic game by no means. So it's like, yeah, standard fare, mediocre game. Okay, cool. But yeah, that's my entry, Mighty Number 9. So I'm gonna pass it down to Gunner.
Yeah, that I never played the game. I just followed the the saga pretty much, like someone looking at a car accident, and yeah, it's rough. I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
I understand
Mhm.
that. My disappointment is super under the radar. I think like three other people in the world played this game. It's why the franchise is fucking gone for the most part. One of my disappointments, or a game I was disappointed in, was Front Mission Evolved. Um, So yeah, right. See, yeah,
Yeah, never heard of it.
me and the other
Yeah.
three
I know
viewers,
of it,
yeah,
but I never played it.
yeah. So just quickly, Front Mission used to be a tactical RPG, kind of like in the vein of XCOM, Final Fantasy, Tactics, those type of games, like a top-down tactical strategy on a grid.
Okay.
It was, you fought in mechs and you fought against other mechs. The cool thing about it was that each mech, or they all had parts to them. So you can damage an arm, which would then basically render that arm useless. And that enemy and you couldn't use the gun or the shield. You can shoot the missile pods. You can destroy them. You can shoot the legs to disable mobility, the head to disable camera, so your aiming would suck and your field of view would be super limited. Really
Oh,
cool. Yeah, I loved it. Like one of my favorite games was Front Mission 4 on the PlayStation 2. I played the shit out of that. And Front Mission 3, which was on the PlayStation. So, when the PlayStation 3 was the current console, Square Enix at this time announced a new front mission. Front Mission Evolved. Now, this is before I would, honestly did my research on certain games, and this is when I trusted the company. This is my favorite franchise. They couldn't possibly fuck it up. Well, lo and behold, with this one, they did. So I bought the game day one when it came out, $65. And when I put it in my system and I get to the tutorial, I'm like, wait a minute. Did I accidentally buy an Armored Core game? What is this? This isn't Front Mission. So when I played it, yeah, they what I didn't know is that they changed Front Mission. It was no longer a tactical RPG. It was a low budget, mediocre Armored Core clone.
Wow.
We all know Armored Core. We know how that plays. I liked Front Mission because it played differently than Armored Core. If I wanted to play a high octane action mech shooter, I go to Armored Core. If I wanted to play a tactical mech game, I went to Front Mission.
Right.
So Square Enix saw the success of Armored Core at the time and was like, we can do that too. So they literally threw out the formula that worked and went to some cheap Armored Core clone. Still had the breakable parts mechanics. You still get your arm shot off, but it was nearly impossible for that to happen to me because I could just strafe by the enemy. I wasn't stuck in a tactical setting where I had to rely on luck and my stats in order to avoid that. I just dash out the way and I avoid getting my arm shot. So, yeah, that upset me to the point where I finished the tutorial, finished the first mission, realized that the franchise that I really liked was fucked, and I just stopped playing. I returned the game, and I was able to get like a credit on it, and that upset me because I really was a fan of Front Mission, and I was like, great, another tactical RPG wiped off the map because we wanna make our game compete with the other game instead of just living in the same space. And there was like a later Front Mission that came out on PlayStation 4. Wasn't much better. It was more of the same. No tactical, trying to harp off of Armored Core. So yeah, that's one of my disappointments. RIP Front Mission. I guess Front Mission ends at Front Mission 4 for me. But that's just one that I have. I'm now gonna pass it over to a Mr. Hado Wolf. He's gonna let us know a disappointment that he experienced.
Yeah, so one major video game that I was really hyped for when it first came out, and I really wanted to play. Even remember saving money to make sure that I can buy it on day one, was Prototype. Um,
Mm.
Prototype was supposed to be an open world, kind of like, the Spider-Man console games, where you're doing various missions, you're trying to, defend yourself from both humans and monsters alike. The story was pretty bland from the get-go, but again, I can play a video game and like it while at the same time pushing the story aside. Prototype was glitchy, overly complicating in terms of knowing what you have to do, because it would start a mission for you and then all of a sudden chaos starts to happen. Enemy starts running out of nowhere. The army is now shooting at you from both air, land, and sea. It was just like, so when I start a mission, that's when New York City burns. And when I'm not in a mission is when the city is okay, because the game takes place in New York City, Manhattan.
Yeah.
Um, it presented some really cool things like absorbing people to taking their identity, or using your ability to turn your hands into various weapons. But then, even though you could have done all of that, even though you had the super speed, even though you had flight, you still, the way the game was designed, especially with the alien enemies or the monster like enemies, you felt weak. I
Yeah,
would get
yeah.
Yeah.
tossed out of an
I
attack.
agree.
Right, like they had these super armors that would, your abilities is bouncing off of their skin, or they would just interrupt your attack, or it was just like, I felt so vulnerable playing this game from the very beginning all the way to the very end. You know, like I in another podcast I mentioned a game that's also open world, but I love, I hold dear to my heart is Infamous. And Infamous had that proper transformation from being a person who's learning your abilities and getting better at your abilities to a master of your abilities by the end of the game. Really, he wasn't a master, but he knew his abilities enough to fight the final boss. That's the point. In this, in Prototype, I don't even remember if I even beat the final boss. I think I just said "fuck it all to hell" and took the game at my console, and that was it. I don't even think I even beat the final boss. It was just one of the most frustrating games that I've ever had to play, coupled with a very over the top, edgy, sassy main character, bland story, bland environments, bland enemies. It was just a clusterfuck of what the fuck through and through. I was very hyped at first. I think that main character has a lot of potential with the right game developers. Um, it's just sad that Prototype is what I got. Uh, so for me, it's that game will always be etched in my brain as the worst, one of the worst video games I've ever played.
I remember too, like the game was really hard to find on launch. Like we went to a few
Yeah,
different stores looking for it. Like we spent the whole day looking for
yeah,
it.
And
yep.
not to mention, I believe um Infamous and Prototype were like launching around the same time, if I'm not mistaken. Like those were like the two big titles. Um,
They might have come out the
I
same
could
year.
be wrong,
They
but
might have come out the same year.
I don't remember which one. I know I played Prototype pretty much on day one or around the like a day or two later after it came out.
mhm.
Infamous I played later on, and that's because Gunner he's the one who suggested that I try Infamous to
Yeah,
that
yeah, I remember
he
that.
was saying that you know you gave it like your own personal opinion. He was like, this is a game that I should try. So I went ahead and I tried it, and it turned out to be one of my favorite video games ever. In a hard contrast to Prototype being one of the worst video games that I have ever played. And I feel bad for anyone who spent their money on Prototype. To be honest, I feel like we all deserve a refund for that freaking game. But
Yeah, yeah.
I digress.
I I could be wrong.
Mm.
Because I know with my experience, it was between Infamous and Prototype, and then I ended up choosing Prototype to play, and I was very disappointed with that game as well. Didn't even bother to pick up the sequels. So
So Infamous
my
1
mistake.
came out in May 26th of '09. Prototype, the first one came out in June 2009. So they came
Yeah,
out the same year, just a month between each
yeah.
other. So they basically came out the same
Okay, yeah, because that brings me to my point. Like I was deciding which one I should play,
time.
and I ended up picking Prototype. So glad I was right with the timeline. Um, so you passing it on to me, Wolf, or you
Yeah, I'm
still got
passing
more
it
for me?
on to you, Esoteric. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. It left a bad taste in my mouth.
Okay, okay. Well, speaking speaking of leaving bad taste in mouths, figuratively speaking,
Where
of
are you going
course.
with this?
um, I would have to say my next entry would have to be Last Guardian.
Great entry.
Like Last Guardian would have to be my second entry. I was extremely disappointed because although I missed out on Shadows of Colossus, I did happen to play Ico, and I really enjoyed Ico. Great game. Um, so I was expecting a little more when Last Guardian came out, and I do understand it got pushed back, for several years or so on, so on. And we literally watched the buildup of this game, as it was being developed and so on. But it was just, in my opinion, it was super archaic for a PlayStation game. Like it was incredibly archaic. I don't know why they put it on the PS5. The game is terrible in my opinion, but maybe there are some people who like it. I think it's a bag of bullshit, but you know, people have different opinions. Um, I remember a time where we actually it's funny because we actually started the channel way back when, and we were all uh it was Kong, Gunner, and myself trying to like finish the game to like do reviews, and I was really fighting really hard to get through it. Like it was just so it was just so like
It felt like
it
a
was so
chore.
terrible. It definitely did feel like a chore simply because like everything was working against me. Like the controls, the directions, like didn't know where to really go. A part of the big mechanics of the game is controlling the griffin like creature. I forgot what the hell its name
Rico.
is. Um, yeah, Trico? No, that wasn't Trico. Rico.
No,
His name
Trico.
was Trico
Yeah,
Yeah,
Trico.
Trico,
Yeah.
like the Pokemon.
after the Pokemon.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
don't
the
know.
Wow,
Pokemon
that's
game.
spelled
so
differently,
wow.
but it's not Rico. What the fuck? It's Starship Troopers.
Whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same.
that was
Rico.
I think that was a very interesting movie too, but whatever.
I
Um
love that
It's a
movie.
classic.
yeah, same. But yeah, Trico, like that was a big mechanic controlling Trico. Um I never got the controls right. I don't even know how I managed to beat the game, but I feel like everything was working against me. The enemies were like lackluster. Um I don't even remember what they did, to be honest.
I think they just picked you up, and that was a game over. I think.
R-
Wait, there were enemies in that game?
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah,
They were like,
they were like little like miniature golems that
yeah.
were like
Yeah.
they would glow, and they were kind of like automatons
Yeah.
and just grab you,
Sometimes
run.
Trico would go like berserk or feral, and he would actually attack you, the little boy. And there were some times where you had to like, he was like a big ass puppy. You had to fucking calm your dog down. And
Yeah, yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, the premise of the story was he was supposed to eat the people in the village of the boy that lived there and take them to some deity that turned them into some type of energy, some shit like that. It was just so all over the place. I don't know. Um, but yeah, you had to deal with him. They had aspects of platforming where I missed like every jump. There were times where Trico is supposed to grab you with his tail and he just sits there and watch you fall to your death. And I'm just looking like, what the hell? Like, am I supposed to like tell you to catch
Nah, bro.
me? Like, is there some type of like common sense system that's implemented where I have to like
not to interrupt, but to be fair, because I sort of kind of tolerated the game. It wasn't okay. Anyway, um,
You liked the game. We had this
I
conversation
like the
6
game.
years ago. You liked the game. It's okay.
You
Say it.
had the idea was that Trico was like a puppy. When you get a puppy, it's rambunctious. It doesn't listen to you. And the idea was over the course of the game, you would train Trico to be like a faithful companion. That was it.
well
Con-
they definitely didn't articulate that well because
oh no.
if they implemented something where okay they gave us like a skill level or like a learning level of Trico, like oh this is what he knows how to do or this is what you need to train him to do in order to progress,
Wait, you
understandable.
wanted it to be a video game?
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty much. I definitely did. I wanted it to be a video
hmm,
game. I
interesting.
felt like I felt like I was reading those old school Goosebump books where you turn to page 25 if you want this ending, turn to page 63, and I'm just flipping the pages because I don't know what the hell I'm gonna get, you know. And the thing is about the game, I felt like there was no responsibility on the deaths on my part. Like I felt like I did everything correct, and it was just a coin toss 50-50 as to whether or not he would catch me in some platforming moments or whether he wouldn't catch me or whether he'll save me from the golems or whether he won't save me from the golems. Like it was just a bunch of what if. It felt like a what if simulation. Like will I make it, will I not make it? And that's how I felt overall about the game. You know, it should have been a PS2 game. Was it on PS4?
Yeah. I mean,
Which makes it even worse. It
yeah.
should have been. I would have given it PS3
Yeah.
and
It was in
backwards.
development hell for a
10 years.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
quite some time. And it's like, wow, we waited all this time and this is what we got. very disappointed about that game. And for those of you who like it, I'm sorry. For those of you who don't like it and played it, I'm also sorry. That's pretty much what I can say about it. Passing it on to you, Kong.
Um, so I'll quickly say before I say my number two. I was wearing the same exact hat during the time we were reviewing Last Guardian, and we were shitting on Gunner for liking it because me and Esoteric hated that fucking game, and we were like, we don't know who paid you off, but it's not funny. You should stop pretending to like the game.
Stop being a Sony shill.
But yeah, that game was pretty. I mean, it's not the worst game I've ever played, but it's certainly not good.
No, it's not the worst, but it really like it didn't deliver based upon its predecessors.
No,
It
not
definitely
even
didn't.
close. But anyway, speaking of games that had great predecessors and just not anyway, Resident Evil 3 remake is my number two. Um,
Really?
yeah.
Oof.
I didn't even play. I didn't even
So
play it yet.
I mean, I think it's worth playing if you're a Resident Evil fan, but I my disappointment comes from me having high
More.
expectations. So
Okay.
when this game before it came out, I was super amped, and I didn't think this game would ever get a remake, because it was kind of treated like the side game. Like when people think Resident Evil, they think the first two, which is fair because the first two are fantastic, and the third one's kind of considered like, oh, okay, it was them going all action for one game. But I loved Resident Evil 3.
Okay.
So
Yeah, Resident Evil 3 was supposed to be a spin-off, like a side
it was
story.
never supposed to be a main series entry.
Yeah.
I thought Code Veronica was treated like the
It
stepchild.
certainly is in the grand scheme of things, but Resident Evil 3 was kind of like leaning toward that side of things,
Okay.
especially with like Resident Evil 4 coming out and it being considered like I consider it the best Resident Evil game amongst the main
Agreed.
series games. So, it just it shadows over that over Resident Evil 3. Anyway, so remake came out, and this actually came out during the pandemic. So like I had nothing to do. So I was highly anticipating this game. And before it came out, there were a few reviews on it, and I think Gunnar has shared a review with me, and the guy was like really lackluster in the game, and I didn't want to believe what the guy was saying. I was like, "It's no way. This guy's just a pussy."
Yeah, I remember that.
And he was right. Like the review was totally on point. Like the game was not what you would expect based on what they have managed to pull off with Resident Evil 2 remake. And my expectations were there, where Resident Evil 2 remake, I didn't really know what I was going to get into. I was like, okay, well, we'll see what they do with it. But then I played the demo. I was like, this game is the tits. And it came out and it was awesome. And fantastic remake, in my opinion. I wouldn't say it's better than the original, but I think that's my nostalgia talking. It's the best remake you can ask for, honestly. So yeah, Resident Evil 3 remake came out and I played it, and the demo came out for it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try the demo. And I tried to resist, but I was like, fuck it, I gotta play it. And I enjoyed the demo. Little did I know the demo was the best part of the entire game.
Wow.
And so when I played the real game, I was like, where's Nemesis? Like this is not Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 3 is supposed to be action packed, you getting chased around the city by Nemesis, you never knowing when he's going to show up, and him being just a giant monkey wrench to anything you're trying to do to progress through the game, which is the experience that I was looking for. And what we ended up getting, and I hate to spoil it for Esoteric, but I think you should try it anyway, is just a bunch of cutscenes and very little gameplay, very shallow gameplay, barely any puzzles. It was like, what is this? And when I beat the game, I was just like, not to mention they took out a bunch of segments that were in the original. They just eliminated it completely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which was like, what the hell? And then they spoiler alert, the Nemesis transforms way earlier in the game, and he has new forms that he never had before. And the boss battles with those new forms, like he has a dog form, and it's like super gimmicky and just like not the same. And it's just like, wow, how can you guys not make a better game than the 1999 PlayStation 1 version? Like, you guys failed. Like, the original 99 version is better than this game.
They were probably doing too much simply because two had a lot of additions to it. So they were like, "Oh, let us just add three with more."
Nah,
Um,
that's not what happened.
and it
Because
wasn't.
it was a different development team. It wasn't developed in house like Resident Evil 2. It was developed. It was
Oh, okay,
outsourced to a
okay.
different company, and I guess they were running out of time and they had a deadline, and so they cut corners and we got what we got.
Wow.
And unfortunately,
Okay.
the same team is working on the Resident Evil 4 remake, so my expectations are very low for that game.
Oh my God.
So
I would say they can't mess this up, but clearly,
I stand by the fact I don't think Resident Evil should have been a full priced game. Resident Evil 3 should not have been full
no,
price game. Should have been like a $50 game.
$40 game. $40 game.
Mm.
And there's a reason
it
why
was that
it
short.
was that short, it was that disappointing, and there's a reason why they bundled Resident Evil Resistance with it. It's to make it feel like a justified purchase, which was a that game is not
And
great either.
I don't even think I put in the code for that game.
You're not missing out on much. I played it for like 2 days and I was like, I think I'm cool. I don't want to touch this game. And I was on the way to platinum. I'm actually like 2 trophies away to the platinum, and I just stopped. And they're not hard trophies to get. And I just don't want to play this game anymore. Like, it just, like, I feel like I'm wasting my time. And one could argue that getting trophies is a waste of time. Fair, but for me, it's like getting a platinum trophy is just me really expanding my experience with a certain game that I like. And so me getting the
Yeah.
platinum for that game felt dirty because I didn't like what I was playing. So I just stopped. So
Damn.
yep, that's my entry too. So Gunnar, it's on you.
Okay. Now this one I have to like calm myself down with because to this day this game gets me upset and I fucking despise this game. It's Final Fantasy 15. I fucking I hate that game with
Never
a
played it,
passion.
so
Don't. No, you know what? No, still don't because even if you play it now, you are not gonna play the version that I played. No one will ever be able to play the version I played. That game started off bad. That game, I don't know what the hell Square Enix was on when this game came out. Speaking of development hell, because we talked about that a little bit, this game also had a 10-year
yeah,
development cycle. This game started off as a spin-off to Final Fantasy 13. And in that time, a fucking MMO came out, died,
Mm,
was resurrected, and then 15
mm,
finally came out. So,
yeah. Not to
yeah.
cut you off, Gunna, but I remember us being either in late junior high or early high school when they were like speaking about this versus 13 or
Right, it
whatever.
started off as Versus 13 because it was a spin-off to Final Fantasy 13. And then shit happened and it became 15 all of a sudden. But the way the game starts, you can't even play the game before you if you want to get the whole story, you have to watch a fucking anime and then you have to watch a movie that takes place the anime takes place before the game and the movie takes place as the game is starting. So if you don't watch the anime and you don't watch the movie, you're gonna see some cutscenes and you're gonna be lost. Bad way to start a game. You're asking people to get developed into a story that they know nothing about before they even put a disc into their system. I never saw the anime. I saw the movie. Movie's okay. It's fine. It's better than that Final Fantasy movie that came out in like 2000. But
Early, right? Something like that.
yeah. So at least it's a Final Fantasy movie. But I shouldn't have to watch a movie to start a game. There's so much about that game that I hate,
So weird.
but I'll just try to run through. Yeah, it's you call it weird, I call it stupid. So to each his own.
mm,
Just to run it down as quickly as I can, so this doesn't turn into a 3-hour video. Combat boring as hell. At that time, you could only play as the main character, Noctis. His gimmick, he has invisible weapons that circle around him. You might have seen a trailer where he has all these swords and daggers and spears. You don't get that shit in the beginning. You get one little floaty sword. You have to get all those fucking weapons as you go through the game. So all Noctis can do is throw his dagger and teleport to it. That's all he can do. His homies are more interesting than him. But at the time, you couldn't play as them. In later updates, you could play as them. So when I played, I only played as Noctis, who throws a sword, swings it. When he throws a sword, it takes magic. Okay, cool, whatever. How do I refill my magic? Do I pop an ether? No. No, that's smart. What I want you to do is I want you to fling your sword to a wall and hang on the wall like a cockroach, and that'll refill your magic gauge. And then you fall. Yeah, that's my face. And then you fall down, and your magic is back. Okay.
Wait. First of all, you had me at throwing daggers takes magic.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and
Because
then okay.
in that game, magic is controlled by a mother crystal. Lots of Final Fantasy games have them, and the premise of the story is the big bad empire takes that crystal. So Noctis is the only person that can currently use magic. But his idea of magic is throwing daggers. That's it. So like I said, you couldn't play as his boys, but if you wanted to play as their separate storylines, so for certain points in the game, they would disappear for lengths on end. If you wanted to find out what happened to them, you had to go to the PlayStation Store and buy separate DLC that wasn't included in the game that explained what they were doing at that time they were MIA. Wasn't going to fucking do that. So I'm like, I don't give a fuck
Wow.
what they were doing. They could have been doing push ups. I don't care. But what really pissed me off was the way you got around was in a car. Whatever, modern Final Fantasy, 7 did it, 8 did it, whatever. But I guess Noctis didn't have his fucking driver's license because Ignis was in charge of driving in the beginning of the game. He wouldn't let you drive. When the sun set, he was like, gotta get off the road. Monsters are in the road. I'm like, we throw swords. This guy has a giant great sword. This man has a gun, and you have knives. Why are we getting off the road? Gotta do it. Monsters on the road. So he would forcefully pull you over, and you would have to rest for the night. As the game progressed, he let you drive. You finally fucking you got your learner's permit, and he let you drive. But when the sun set, he was like, "We got to get off the road. Monsters." I'm like, "Can you just let me play the fucking game?" No, apparently not. And you needed the car. You couldn't get anywhere without the car. Later on, he finally lets you drive at night. But what happens at night? These big ass fucking iron golems spawn in the middle of the road. You have to fight them. You have to do a side quest to, I shit you not, get high beam lights in order to be able to drive at night. I'm not kidding you, man. This game was fucking trash.
You had to do a side quest to get
Yes.
something that should already been
Yes.
a safety precaution
Yes.
on a
My
car.
man, I am not kidding you. I had to go into a dungeon, fight Shahagins and magical creatures to get high beams.
So you had to
High
fight
beams.
magical
to
fish
fight this-
people. You had to fight magical fish people to get high beams on his car to scare away giant monsters that
Oh,
spawned on
shit.
the road in the middle of the night.
Yep.
I'm gonna call myself it for the podcast. I cannot top that. I can't.
Wait, hold on. So you couldn't go to villages that make weapons or like
Or like
replenishes.
collect the parts or just spend a lot of money or something. You know, you have to grind for gil, as what Final Fantasy calls it. No, instead you fought fish people.
In a dungeon, and
You know,
your reward in a chest were fucking high beams.
my 4 games combined cannot top that.
Dude, and
Oh.
there's so much, but this would just go ahead, go ahead. I'll try.
It's,
No, I just wanted. I'm sorry. I just wanted to like because I could be wrong again because I know Gunnar lent me the game, but I never booted it up. So
Lucky
you
you.
know, yeah, lucky me. I think they had a character. I guess she was like eye candy or something. She wore like a yellow jacket, looked like a
Sid.
race car driver.
Sid. I think
She
she's
didn't
the
ha-
Sid for the
Cindy.
game.
Yeah, she was Sid's granddaughter.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah, because there is like a sit in every game.
Sid in every game.
She didn't have high beams because I thought she was like a mechanic.
Oh,
the way
she had high
looked.
beams.
But
She
she has
had
high
high
beam.
beams.
Yeah. But
But
that didn't
you
help
don't
me
have the high
fucking.
beams that you needed on the car.
Yeah, she was the one who
Okay.
gave you the quest. I had to get the quest from the double D McTitster over here to get the fucking hype. I'm like, why am I doing this for high beams. Anyway,
That's a standard on cars. No car is made without high beams.
apparently in magical Final Fantasy 15 world, they're in dungeons.
Oh
Wow.
shit!
The,
Can you
the game,
imagine? Esoteric, you should probably find your park assist somewhere in a dungeon, and where in the state you live in. You're probably gonna have to search the sewers
yeah.
for
Good,
your lane
good
assist
luck.
on your SUV.
Good luck. Good luck.
Like, I don't
Damn.
understand.
God forbid they lose a tailpipe with that. What the hell are they gonna do?
That
Like,
is I can't.
I
I don't.
I will
I don't.
always remember that because I'm like it was and again this is when I say like if any of you guys played it now you would not play the version that I played because that game had so many patches, hot fixes, free DLC. Like at a certain point the car could fly, so it negates everything I just said. But when I played it, the car could not fly.
Wow.
But
So
why
I
is the
had
car flying? How you go from doing missions with Sahagins
I-
to get high beams on what should be standard
dude
procedure on a car to the
I
car fucking flying?
I tapped out. I was like, I want nothing to do with this game. If it tells you anything, the developer, the guy who was head developer of the game, quit mid development, and Square Enix literally said, all right, all the DLC he worked on, that's it. We're not making anything more for this game. If that tells you anything, the guy who was in lead development on it left, and Square Enix stopped development for the game. Like, this game is a fucking travesty. I hate it. I want nothing to do with it. I despise this game. So, like, 15 is more than a disappointment. It has literally scarred me for the franchise that, in a previous episode, was one of my favorite games of all times from the same franchise. So, I can't count 14. That's a different beast. But they got 16 on the horizon. I am not giving that any shadow of the doubt. I am giving it a year before I even consider spending any money on that game. I can go on forever, but
In my
15
head, you
trash.
have like a scar on your chest like Sagat, and it's just a Final Fantasy 15 logo.
Yo, it legitimately gets me upset. Like when I say I despise that, I don't really use that word all freely, but I despise that game with a passion. I will never play it again. That game is dead to me. It is FF 13, 14, and 16 that's on the horizon.
And
But
13 was bad too. Like a lot of people hated that game.
but
So
Yeah.
that
15 has
goes to show you how bad 15 is.
15 takes the key. And I hate to repeat myself, but it's just like you guys, fortunately, I guess, will never experience my pain because unless
Well,
you purposely find like a disc of it and don't
I was
install
gonna say
any of
like
the
you could just do
patches.
that and
Yeah,
play it that way.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that game is fucking junk. Anyway, that's my Mr. Wolf. On
That
to you.
it was fucking junk.
That concludes the podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk anymore. Like I can't.
It's so
I
bad. It upsets me so much.
I can't beat that. I can't even compare to it. To be
We
honest,
don't.
like
We're
wow.
not competing here, man.
Yeah, I mean, but still, like yo, this is wow. Are you Are you done?
Yeah,
Gonna
yeah, yeah, yeah,
looking at a new one?
yeah. Because
Okay.
like I said, I can go on, but we got on to you, sir.
So the next game for disappointment, for me was Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
Oh
Yeah.
Okay.
It's,
I was a
this is
witness to this guy. It was many a conversation I was part of. That yeah.
yeah, Street Fighter Cross Tekken. We went wild when we saw Kazuya step into the ring to fight Ryu
Yeah.
on that screen. And we was like, yep, this is it. This is the fighting game that's gonna end all fighting games. And boy, what a shit show that was. From the lack of fluidity between the characters to the gems to the weird combat system that it had to a big DLC update that was locked behind that was already on the disc and just locked until they were ready to release it. Street Fighter Cross Tekken, as a fighting game enthusiast, as someone who loves fighting games overall, like that is my genre. To see Kazuya, Nina, Steve Fox, and all these other various Tekken characters go toe to toe with the iconic Street Fighter characters it should have been something that was every Street Fighter fan, Tekken fan, fighting game enthusiast dream come true. And the game was so bad that the reverse, what they intended on having to eventually release, never even happened. Instead, for Tekken 7, they got Akuma as a guest character from the Street Fighter series. Street Fighter Cross Tekken did so bad that I think it the gaming community, the fighting game community, I think took a pretty heavy hit for that, because like how like it seemed like it was such a big failure that no one wanted to put any more trust in like collaboration fighting games anymore. Like
Yeah,
it seemed like it was just like, okay, well, that's something that, game developers are going to stay away from. As of recently, Capcom fighting games, most recent fighting games have been not so great, to be honest. So I feel like they definitely need work in that. But Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and I played that game to hell. I made it all the way to A rank. I made it to a pretty high rank, to the point where I was fighting players that I was like, okay, obviously these guys are Evo tournament players or people who's on that level, because I could barely touch them. So that gives you, and I am nowhere near, in my personal opinion, Evo level. So that gives you a scale of how bad the player base was in Street Fighter Cross Tekken when you were doing ranked match. Um, the gem system, powering up your characters with attack or speed or deep, I just felt like they just kept piling on more and more nonsense to a game that could have just been fine with, a tweaked up or a slightly built up Street Fighter 4 mechanic with Tekken characters. Um, the whole I sacrifice one character to gain superpowers for 10 seconds at most. Even though in a fighting game, 10 seconds can be a very long time. And then after that, you automatically lose because you only needed to kill one character to win a
right. Yeah,
round.
I remember
And it
that.
was
Yeah.
just like, what's the point? Like, why am I like the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 introduced the X Factor system, which is a comeback system, and it made sense. It the least amount of characters you have is the more powerful that system became. So a lot of people will either use it in the first character to blow up the opponent's team, or they will save it till their last character so that they can make that one character as powerful as three characters in one. But I don't even know what the system was called in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, because I never used it. I never
Pandora's
activated it.
box or something.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
Pandora's box.
Um, to you first off, you lose if you lose one character. You have to sacrifice one character to power up yourself, and for only a couple seconds in the fight, you you are really powerful. But it never changed the mechanic of the character. So it's not like, for instance, Ryu is a character known to have strong cross-ups, but they're obvious cross-ups. So if you're smart and you know how to block his cross-ups, me sacrificing, I don't know, say Ken on my team, it didn't change Ryu as a character. I still would have to understand Ryu to open you up to deal the damage. And if you understood my character and how to fight him or her, then you would never give me that opportunity. All you had to do was really wait it out or hit me, and I'll eventually lose. It was a dumb ass mechanic. It was just so fucking retarded. It was like, hey guys, how much more bullshit can we add on to this before we do its final release? And that Pandora thing was definitely one of the worst mechanics I've ever played in any fighting game in history. Street Fighter Cross Tekken should have been the fighting game for me on years on years on years. It should have been for me the top 5, top 3, top 2 fighting games in my personal opinion, and it's a big disappointment. I'm so disappointed. I hope that Capcom and Namco revisits this again, but not as Street Fighter Cross Tekken, but more like a better, more stable, less bullshit type of fighting game that people can actually play. I would really like to see that again. Not so much of Street Fighter characters, but Capcom in general, and not so much Tekken characters, but Namco in general. So more like a Street Fighter, like a Capcom cross Namco kind of collaboration in fighting in a fighting game genre. I would love to see that, but honestly, because of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, I don't think I'm ever gonna get anything like that. So
Mm,
it's a
yeah.
lost cause.
No,
But
I get 100% what you're saying, because that was one of the games I was going to speak on as well. And I personally really enjoyed the game simply because of the roster that it provided you. I feel like their notoriety would have just been good enough by introducing 3D characters on a 3D platform to a 2D platform and vice versa. That would have been good enough for me. They didn't need any of the extra stuff. The roster was great. The combos was good. I really enjoyed it. But when they added those mechanics of, like you said, building up characters, and there wasn't an option to play without it, to my knowledge, as far as I recall, and having the Pandora's box, it was they messed it up, man. They had a
they
they had a
dropped the
gem,
ball.
and they just
Mm.
left it, man. It was just, I feel really bad for that. Um, yeah, I'm hoping with you. I hope they revisit it as well. Um, but I'm sorry, are you done with your point,
No,
or?
I'm done. I can't talk about it anymore. That game is just it's sad. It's a sad situation. So it's your turn. I'm good.
Okay. Well, one of the games that really disappointed me, and it was also a next gen game. It had a decent trilogy. I've heard a lot of people talk about the first iteration of it. And they people were putting me on. They were like, "Listen, you got to play this game. You got to play this game." At this time, I didn't get to play the trilogy, so I'm really upset about it. But I did try the next gen one, and I was very disappointed. Um, my the game that I'm talking about is Prince of Persia.
Oh,
Um, that game was super super corny. It was a super
You should
letdown.
specify which one you're talking about.
The next gen one, it just says Prince of Persia, PS3, Xbox, I believe. It
It's the
wasn't
one with the
1, 2,
blue
and 3.
text, and it's the
Yes,
character with the claw
and the
hand,
mask
and
on.
the
Yes,
mask, and the red scarf, just for people
Yeah,
to know, because
yes.
you know there's
yeah.
various
They rebooted it
reboots of Prince of
as Prince
Persia.
of
So
Persia. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's why I said next gen. I didn't know that there was other ones after the trilogy aside from that one. Um, I feel like that game was a segue for people to advocate for easy mode, because that game was super easy. As far as I recollect, every time you fell off a cliff, the protagonist's partner that he was with would save him. There'll be some type of cutscene where her hand will be extending and she'll like grab you off the cliff. Um, the monsters, I think you only fought them one at a time. There was no like 2-on-1, 2-on-2. It was just one monster literally at a time. I spent most of the time gathering these blue orbs. I completely forgot what they were for. Um, but yeah, I felt really disappointed about that game simply because a lot of people advocated for the trilogy, which is no fault to them, because they said the trilogy. They did not say the next gen version of it. But I assume that if the trilogy was this good, then this game would have been good as well. But I was sadly mistaken. Um, yeah, it was like super. I liked the aesthetics. I mean, it was like cell shaded graphics, so it was like okay,
It
whatever.
looked nice, yeah.
Yeah, it looked really nice. Super stylized. I like that. But yeah, it was just a very terrible game. I don't think I have anything more to discuss about it. Like most of it was just lackluster. I don't even remember the boss battles. Usually that's a significant moment when you're playing these types of games. Um but I don't even remember the boss battle. I don't even really remember the premise of the story, and I'm a strong advocate when it comes to like stories in video games. So,
I
yeah.
remember you getting a trophy for just booting up the game, which is never a good sign.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously?
I think I
Damn.
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we
I don't
played it at the
remember that.
college and you got it and super excited to play it. I was like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. You played it, and as soon as you booted up the game, bloop. Okay,
Wow.
had a good start.
As you can see, I don't remember anything but the bad moments of the game. Like that's how bad it was. Sometimes you can take, you know, a bad situation and point out some good aspects of it, but in this particular case, I can't recall, and I don't have any intentions of booting up the game again and playing it just to see what good aspects the game have. So, yeah, it was a pretty short one, but that was my third entry. So,
I don't think I. That was your third one.
I believe so. Yeah, I did Sonic the Hedgehog, Last Guardian, and now Prince of Persia.
So did everybody do a third one except me?
No, I start the
He kicked off. That's
Oh,
why.
okay,
yeah.
okay. Because we're already an hour in, so I'm thinking we should probably wrap up. Do you guys want to just do a quick round, or
Um, yeah, if we want, I can. I don't. I like. We could just do one more apiece.
okay? So I'll make this one super quick. So my third entry would be, I guess it's third entry. I've been losing count. Been kind of dozing off a little. The Last of Us
Yeah.
2 is my third entry. So, this is gonna be, I guess, a controversial entry for some people. Um, I'm gonna say this.
He,
I'm
he went there.
I
He
don't give
went
a
there.
shit.
It is what
Come
it
at me.
is. It is what it is.
Listen, I played the first Last of Us game. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I enjoyed the thing I enjoyed most about the first Last of Us game was the story. The gameplay was
Yeah.
nothing groundbreaking or new. It was a good game, like as far as like if you look for that kind of gameplay, slow, methodical, action adventure, sneaking around, whatever, inventory management gameplay. It does that stuff really well if you're into that. And I can play games like that, but that wasn't the strong suit for me. Um, the strongest part of the game was the story, and some people will say the multiplayer is fantastic, and I believe them, but I never played the multiplayer, so I can't speak to that. But with the second game, which took 7 years to come out, I was anticipating because I wanted to see where they would take the story next, and luckily, I didn't buy the game. I was like, I don't feel comfortable buying this game right away. I'm gonna wait and see what people say, and if anything, I might watch it, which I did, and I'm glad I did. So they leaked a pivotal cutscene in the game. When I heard what they did, I was floored. I was shocked. I didn't believe it was real until I saw it, and I was like, wow. So, um, and that's not why I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with there's two things. The story beats that they decided to go with are very questionable, in my opinion. And second was the decision to market the game a certain way. So, what I
Yeah.
mean by that is there are cutscenes in the game that they used in the trailer, and they swapped character models to make it seem like certain characters play a bigger role than they actually do in the game. So it's like if you see, what's a good example? Uh, hmm. if you see, let's say Street Fighter, okay,
Third strike.
let's use Street Fighter Cross Tekken. If we see Street Fighter Cross Tekken and we see Kazuya come up and fight Ryu, and we're like, holy shit, Kazuya is a playable character in the game. And then we get the game, and it's like, oh, we know we showed you Kazuya in the cutscene, but it's actually Brian, or not Brian, Paul Phoenix. Kazuya's not playable in the game.
Oh, that's low.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me? You showed me this character though in this particular context. What do you mean? Oh, we wanted to twist. We wanted to surprise you.
Yeah, they use some dumbass
You
reasoning.
you wanted to surprise me after I gave you my money. Well, I didn't
Yeah.
give them my money, but everybody else who bought it
Theoretically.
gave them their money. And there's a interview with the head director and head writer of the story, Neil Druckmann, and he compared it to what Kojima and Konami did with Metal Gear Solid 2, which is where they had the demo for Metal Gear 2 and they had you play with Solid Snake, but when you actually buy Metal Gear 2, the base Metal Gear 2, you don't play with Solid Snake for all that long. You play with him for like maybe 40 minutes. The rest of the game is you play with Raiden. And I remember renting the game and being like, who the fuck is Raiden?
Whoa. Wait. First of all, they got Hideo, even though he's a genius when it comes to creating games, they got backlash for that back in
They
the
sure
day.
as hell
So
did.
why would you make
That's
history
why.
repeat itself?
That's why Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance exists.
Exactly.
Yep.
So what?
So he used that as a inspiration as to why he did what he did. Basically, he took one male character that had like a real pivotal like cutscene with Ellie. I'm gonna spoil the fucking cutscene. I don't care at this point. And they swapped his character model for Joel to make it look like Joel was further in the story than he really was, when in fact he died in the first like 20 minutes of the game. So they fucking lied to you. They just lied to you as to what the game is going to entail. And everybody in their mother defends it. It's like, oh, he was just trying to, swerve you. And I'm like, fuck you, fuck his swerve, fuck all that shit. Don't fucking lie to me and charge me and then pretend like I'm the one in the wrong. Are you kidding me? So that's unacceptable. Like, despite what you feel about the game's story, the game's gameplay, whatever, that was unacceptable. And I was like, you're a piece of shit for that. You're a giant piece of shit for that. Fuck you. Fuck your game. Fuck your company. I'm never gonna buy another Naughty Dog game ever again. I don't care what the fuck they make. Dude, I got games. I got a backlog of games that will make you cry. I don't need to buy your shit. And I sure as hell don't need to buy your shit on launch. I don't need to buy it brand new. Fuck you.
That's incredibly disappointing.
That game pissed me off, and people defend it to this day. Like, and again, if I'm being objective, I don't think the game is bad. Honestly, I don't think the game is bad for what it is. I don't think it's great, and I say that about the first game. I don't think the first one is great in terms of gameplay. It doesn't do anything fantastic.
Very mediocre.
What makes it a big deal is the story, and that's why I was invested in, even interested in the second one. And then let's not even get into the story and like what the decisions they made as far as which characters you played and how you played them and what it was a clusterfuck. I'm like, this game is crazy bad as far as like my expectations. Not bad from an objective. Is this game functional? Can it be fun? Is it lengthy? Like, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about from a very personal standpoint. So Last of Us 2 is a giant piece of turd. Doesn't deserve Game of the Year 2020. That to me goes to Ghost of Tsushima, but I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna let Gunner go with his next entry.
Before you go, really quick, Gunner. Kong was telling me to play Last of Us 2 because I wasn't privy to all of the like marketing aspects that they took. I wasn't like reading up on it or whatever because I really like wanted to play the game. And once I got to that point, I was really upset. Um, I stopped playing. I didn't even play or whatever. And if I'm not mistaken, the character that did it was some character that wasn't even in the first one who had some type of connection to
No,
another one. It I
Yeah.
don't even know what happened. I don't know the story, none of that. But what I do know is that when they did that, I was a bit
it's a
upset.
character they
First of
totally
all,
made up for convenience to tell this new story. That character was not in the first game.
oh, okay, because
Yeah.
Wow.
personally,
And her
I
link
felt
to the
like
first game is so tenuous. It's tenuous at
It's very
best.
lazy writing, in my
okay,
opinion.
okay. I felt like it honestly, I felt that it shouldn't have had a second iteration to begin with, but because of the story
And
performance,
I'll just say
I
this
would,
one thing for anybody who doesn't know, who doesn't care about the spoiler, because I mean, if you've been watching this long, you've been spoiled already. The character that kills Joel, who's like really important to the story, in my opinion. You play as that character for a little over 50% of the game. You play as the character who caused all this havoc. They force you to play with that character.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I mean by like the
that's
story
disappointing.
decisions. Like as far as like what they make you do is like, what the fuck? Like I don't want to play as the Joker in a Batman game after
Yeah,
he
I try to.
killed Robin. What? Like that's what it felt like.
Yeah,
So
I guess they try to pull a sympathy route, like, oh, here's
that's why
why the
they try
character did
and
it.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, it was
it didn't
100%
work.
what
It
they
did
were
not work.
doing.
But anyway, that's my entry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll keep mine short as possible because it's my interaction with this game was short. Um, I know Esoteric talked about games that he got into that had a big franchise previous to it, and he got the short end of the stick. That was my experience with the Metroid series. I didn't play a whole lot of it, and unfortunately, the one that I did try playing
was
was
other
Metroid
M.
Other M. Yeah, I had a friend.
Jeez.
He lent
yep.
it to me. I had a Wii. I was like, I've never played a Metroid game before. Let's give it a shot. That game was bad. That game was rough. I think Team Ninja Theory,
Team
Team Ninja.
Team Ninja.
Ninja Gaiden guys. They developed that
Mm.
game.
Hmm?
Uh, whew, that game was rough. I mean, it looked nice, so that had one thing going for it. Story was rough. From a guy who didn't know a lot about Samus Aran or her backstory, the fact that strong, independent woman is coming in and her ex boss is in the abandoned space station, and she's like, "Hey, all those cool weapons you got, turn them off." I know that's a thing for the Metroid series that Samus comes in big and bad and something happens and she loses all of that and you have to reacquire it. That's the point of the game usually. But the way they did it was just like, yeah, turn all that off. And
Yeah,
like there was a cutscene that some guy was literally going to get killed by a creature, and instead of just taking action like the bounty hunter she is, she calls her fucking ex-boss and says, "Hey, this dude's getting killed. Can I please turn on my gravity whip so I can go save him?" And he's like, "Yeah, you probably should do that." I'm like, "What is this?" Like that's like someone who's seen someone get attacked by a bear, has a gun and it's loaded, and says, "Wait a minute, guy, let me call my boss to see if I can shoot this bear." It's like, what are you doing? Just take action. So that annoyed me. The game was super easy because it had a mechanic that if you rolled at the last second, Samus would automatically roll with a fully charged Buster Shot. So pretty much I played the rest of the game just dodging and shooting charged shots. I never charged anything. I just dodged, shot, dodge, shot, dodge, shot. Killed bosses, killed everything in like almost one shot because of that. The biggest thing
Oh
that
Lord.
Yeah, the biggest thing that
yeah.
pissed me off was in order to use your missiles in that game, you played with the Wiimote, but you played it on its side. It didn't allow you to use a regular controller, a pro controller, anything like that. You played with the Wiimote on its side, and when you went to missiles, you had to flip it and then use the motion controls to first person shoot your missiles. It would purposely put you in first person. You couldn't get out of it, and you were stuck, rooted to the ground until you shot the missile. I'm like, this is so counterintuitive. Why am I doing this? And I guess it was my setup, so I can only blame the game so much for this. But I would always lose connection to the motion sensor bar. So my pointer would always be in a corner somewhere. I'm like, this is so frustrating. And it's like you had to fight certain bosses, certain armored enemies this way, and I was like, I dreaded every time I had to use a missile.
Metroid
Something
Dread.
yeah, right. That's going to be a decent game. Something that you should want to use your missiles in a Metroid game, from my understanding. Not this one. And last thing that really got me was they would force Samus to go into these certain investigation modes where she would have to use you would be presented with like a area, and you would have to zoom in, and it would point you to where you have to go next, or like what's causing the situation, or to further progress the plot. Again, they would root you in one spot. You had to use the Wiimote to use the pointer to move Samus's head, and there was no indicator on where you had to look. The only way you knew you were looking at something right was when Samus would zoom in on it and then comment. I'm like, this is so stupid. Let me move. Why are you forcing me to stay in place? I beat that game. I was like, buddy, take this back. This is your game. I can't do anything with this. Here it is. And luckily, I have friends who are like, that's the worst Metroid game to play. That is not indicative of the rest of the series. And now I know about better Metroid games and which ones to play. But yeah, other M, if I didn't have you guys, I would have been like, fuck the Metroid series. If this is what you're giving me, forget it. I'm over it. But yeah, other M. Stay very far away from that game. Over to you, Mr. Wolf.
So my next entry is extremely short. It is Outriders. Enough said. Your turn, Esoteric.
Well, this
I don't.
concludes the podcast, ladies and gents. Um, are you gonna add any more, or you literally
I'm,
just
I'm
that's it?
literally just yeah. Outriders. The name says for itself. Anybody who's watching it at this point will know that the many issues with Outriders. Blanka Kong has been playing it with me, or we used to play it,
Mm-hmm.
and the rage moments that I have had this man go through because he wants to be a friend in dealing with Outriders with me is phenomenal. Like if he can get, if I can get like a trophy that says, you know, gamer buddy of the year, it will go to Kong
It's a
because
trophy
he
that
sat through
says
that.
"Hanging in there, pal."
A
He
little motivational
went
catalyst.
through that dumpster fire of glitches, that dumpster fire of controls just going bad, dumpster fire of enemies not making any sense, no cooldown, constant rushing, the slowdowns, the frame drops, the even creating a party was difficult at times.
Mm-hmm.
Playing Outriders. I mean, there was one point where he gave up. He took the game out of the console while we were playing
Mm-hmm.
and left me there and in multiplayer. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's not something I do
So
usually. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't give
yeah.
up.
That's
I usually don't give up. But the game had
yeah.
fun. I guess that's kind of my like bonus entry, right? And I think I mentioned that in some podcasts. I don't remember at this point, but yeah, like I don't do that unless I'm like truly at my wits end. I'm like, yo, I don't need to do this. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really discouraged because my older brother really wants me to play Outriders with him.
Don't do it.
I don't know if it's different
Don't do
because
it.
it's the PS5, so I don't know if they made any changes to it.
If it's
it'll
not
look
on the PC, don't do it.
it'll look
So
nicer,
Don't
albeit
play
bad,
it.
I
It's a
guess.
bad game.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it has a
Don't
lot of
do it.
promise. I'll say that. And you know there were moments where I had fun with it, but it's not a good game. It's not polished at all. It's not worth the disc that it's on. Like it's a game that needed at least another year and a half of development.
mm,
Esoteric. Don't do it. Like we're not gonna be. Yes, I get it. It's family, but we are telling you the honest to God truth. You are. Don't do it.
Dude, I got the
Like
platinum trophy on that game, and I wasn't even
without
trying.
trying.
By the time I
Yeah.
realized, I was like, oh shit, I'm like 2 trophies away, and these are easy trophies. And I just took a night and I was like, all right, I'll just kill the 1,000 aliens that they want me to kill, and I was just killing aliens, listening to a podcast, just fucking mowing them motherfuckers down. And I was like, all right, cool, easy
Hmm.
plat. Well, I'll take it.
Like it's an extremely, and it's not even that we chose bad classes either. I chose a class with extremely high DPS. Um, Kong chose a class that needed to be nerfed in order for it to balance out with other classes. And it was so bad that I had to research a skill for him to be able to evade enemies, to deal with the constant glitching, or the fact that your role has no invincibility frames. So
Wow.
you have an evasion technique, but the evasion technique has no invincibility frames. You can be hit out of it. You can be hit before it starts. You can be hit while you're rolling, and you can be hit on recovery.
Here's a good example.
Um,
So you I think Esoteric and Gunner, you guys were watching me play Monster Hunter earlier, and you were watching me
Yeah.
like get harassed by the fucking Io Prey at one point. Like they just kept jumping in off screen, hitting me, stunning me, whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's an enemy class, the Porphyros, whatever the fuck. It's like if you're in a small map
I
with
had to compose himself.
55 Io Prey, and they're all jumping at you, and there's nothing you can
Wow.
do about it. That's what playing that game
you
feels
gotta
like.
take it.
You just got to sit there and just go, all right. When you're ready to let me play, let me know.
Yeah.
Mm.
So Outriders, I didn't even want it to go past 15 seconds, but Outriders is a huge disappointment. Very huge disappointment. I'm warning you. I know you're
I'll
stubborn.
say two
You
things,
may do it
two more
anyway.
things. One, that night that Wolf was talking about where I quit, I legitimately thought about taking the disc out and breaking it in half. That's how annoyed I was with the game. I didn't care about the $60 I spent. I was like, I don't care. I don't want this thing around me.
Hmm.
That's one. Two, I mean, of course, a game like this is going to get a lot of criticism on online, on Reddit or whatever. And I think either Wolf shared it or I just stumbled upon it. But it was a post where a guy was like, you guys really need to fix this game. I've been playing for like 150 hours and I want to like your game, but these glitches, like he would just list a bunch of stuff, is unacceptable. And the game has been out for X amount of months. Like, you guys need to address this before adding new content. And I think it was one of the developers, somebody either on the PR team or the development team, responded to that and said, well, pal, it just sounds like you just had 150 hours of gameplay. How tone deaf can you be?
I'm sure that person got fired. I hope.
Well,
But yeah.
pal, I guess you could just join the unemployment line. I mean, whatever, right? Like, how can you say something like that? Like, even if you're thinking it, don't say it, man. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very insensitive. I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure the people at Ghost of Tsushima, if somebody said, "Oh well, if you did this," they probably humble themselves and take heed. Probably not implement it, but take heed because like they that game was just I'm not even gonna get into it. It was a great game. That's it.
We're talking
I
about bad games here.
I know, but I'm
live
just saying.
live service games, man. Do not trust live service games. Fucking Outriders, fucking Destiny, fucking
Division.
Avengers, Division, fucking Anthem. Where's that carcass at currently? Don't fuck with those games.
Evolve.
Yeah, don't trust them. Don't trust the trailers. Don't trust any of that nonsense. Because if the moment I hear this is a live service game, we have a large rope, I tune out. I'm done. I'm hitting the eject button. You will not fool me again. So
Funny
when I
shit. It
ha-
started with Mag too.
when I found out that Wolf and Kong were gonna play Outriders, I was like, I've been hearing some wonky shit about it, but hey, as long as y'all have fun, I guess that's all that matters at the end of the day. And we're all in the same group chat. I would see sometimes what they were talking about. I saw the videos Wolf would post to try to get Kong back in for one more round, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's a live service game. That's just how they are. They're unfinished messes that they hope fucking hit gold at some point. Don't trust those games. So anybody listening or watching, do not trust them. Stay away from them.
Shit, I know that now.
So let's end it here because this is like super depressing. It's a bummer right now. Let's just move on. So thank you guys for joining us for another podcast. If you couldn't tell by my facial expressions throughout, this was our episode on gaming disappointments. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments below about games that you've been disappointed by. Tell me in the comments that I'm wrong about The Last of Us 2. Can't wait to hear it. Like the video or dislike if you enjoyed it or thought we were wrong at any point. Subscribe. We're going to do podcasts every week. We publish on every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. I stream on Twitch sometimes under Blanka Kong. Right now I'm doing a Monster Hunter challenge, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. Esoteric also streams on Twitch. We're currently in the month of October, so we're going to be streaming a lot of horror games. At least I will be. And we're also going to be doing some collaborative streams as well. So look out for that. All the links are going to be in the description down below, and if not, in our homepage as well. So, Esoteric, where can they find us on the socials?
All right, ladies and gents, you guys can find us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's Logical Gamers TV. Just look for the light bulb icon, and you'll be there.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Leaders.